Ace the interview, lots and lots and lots of great tips for you today. The purpose, so stop and think about what the purpose of the interview is. The purpose that is served in an let's talk traditional first. In a traditional interview is people want to know you as a person. They want to see your interpersonal skills. They want, you know, to hear your story from you. They've read it, but it's so much different when you have that personal touch and you can see the person you're talking to. That is why I guess I could just record these things, but that's why I love seeing you, having you here today, because it's just so much different. It's just so much different. So we start with some simple things. I think that a lot of people, I do get anxious about an interview, and I have had to interview recently. I've told you before, for this job I was interviewing, which made me very nervous. It's formal, you're just uncomfortable, there's this unknown what is going to happen element. You might have scary interviewers and hard questions, gosh, but if you're prepared with your communication and those communication skills, verbal and nonverbal, and you're prepared with your content, you're going to rock it. So making an impression, you know, you make an impression in the first 7 seconds when you meet someone. You all probably knew that. That's a little scary. But in some of these interviews and MMIs and different settings, you'll have a chance to recover if you didn't do such a hot job in the first 7 seconds, but y'all are going to be great because you'll be prepared. Nonverbal is the big piece of the pie here. It's huge. So the way you present yourself is extremely important. And so we're going to start there first. So I'm in the chat, or you can raise your hand. What are some things that you think are important nonverbal skills to bring with you? What are some important nonverbal things you're going to do? Mercedes.
So,
Hi.
I think some nonverbals would be a professional attire.
Okay, great. Yes, clothing, it matters. Other people say smiling, posture, absolutely. Eye contact, eye contact, eye contact, eye contact, eye contact. If I think that there was one thing about demeanor that was brought up in admissions committees more than anything, it might be eye contact. You know, some of us, I think I do this when I'm trying to think, when I'm trying to formulate my thoughts, I look like up left, and I think there's some nonverbal experts out there who can tell you what all those things mean, but you want to practice and make sure you're making good eye contact. Handshake, absolutely, very important, very important. So those are good things. Let me see what I put on our list here. Missed that one. Clothing, grooming, posture, your face. Your face, besides just the eye contact, your face says something. Handshake, you might, the question mark's there because you might not get to do it for a while, but we'll see. We'll see what the world brings. The other thing not mentioned yet was gestures. You know, if I'm like flipping my hair too much, y'all should put that in the chat. Stop and be calm. You know, you watch your hand. I'm Italian, so I can't help it sometimes. But you watch those extraneous movements. Facial expressions, so important. I don't know if some of you experience this, but my husband sometimes, my kids sometimes say, "What is wrong? Why are you mad?" And it's just if I'm not actively putting a smile on my face, it just looks sort of like mean or unhappy. I blame the wrinkles, you know, but if that's you, to have like a non-smiley face, you know, a stoic kind of appearance, practice smiling, because that's going to convey a lot. It lets a positive attitude shine through. You know what positivity does. We've talked about it a little bit. Smile, eye contact, engage, and look attentive. What are these? What are these messages? I mentioned posture and gestures and handshake. I stuck those in there just in case they didn't come up, but you brought them up as important things. Good job. So somebody raise their hand or unmute yourself and tell me one person who's making some sort of impression on you in that picture. We'll listen for anybody. You want me to go first?
So the person in the center of the picture has her shoulders pulled back in a broad way that projects confidence.
I like that. I like that. Very good posture, right? Pardon me. As opposed to the other young lady who is a little slumpy, but not too bad. She doesn't look uninterested or anything. Of course, they're all winning some prize or at some group with some commendation, I suppose. So they're all pretty attentive to the camera. Do you see the non-smiling person? This is not too bad. I think there's a hint of a smile there on this young man, but do you see the woman buried back there making a funny face? So I think this young lady and this young lady, their grooming looks beautiful, professional, perfect, nice posture also. I think this person and this person, y'all are following my pointer, right? I think this person and this person need haircuts, you know, if this was their interview day, you know. So that sort of thing, just to illustrate. I know, see, a lot of this stuff you know already, but it's good to say it out loud. I think I'm going to give you some new tips too that you haven't thought about before. Now, the verbal component of the interview setting, whatever kind of setting it is are you speaking clearly? Are you articulate? Do you use lots of fillers like We have to practice that. Are you organized in your thoughts? Do you talk nonstop? Do you talk in very short sentences? When I talk to my sons, sometimes they say, fine. And I really mean, can you tell me some stories about your day or your week or your month, whatever it is I haven't heard, but they're very concise. You don't want to be too concise and you don't want to talk too much. You want to have that perfect balance. And very important, are you answering the question that was asked? Very important. We had some things in the chat. That's true. So adjusting your hearing aids and doing it discreetly, although I don't think anybody would, they might notice that, but I don't know that anybody would really hold it against you. I would hope not. Here we go. Some things we can practice as we're just visiting with each other. When you talk to your friends, when you talk to your family, why don't you pay attention to what kind of a talker are you? I'm a long talker. If anybody, y'all don't even watch Seinfeld anymore, do you? Anyway, I'm a long talker, not usually a fast talker, but I need to get through all of this for you. So sometimes I'm a fast talker. Don't interrupt people. This is a terrible habit that I catch myself in all the time. And when you do, say you're sorry. Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt you. A lot of time, I didn't write that on the virtual, when we get to virtual interviews, it's a little hard sometimes. Somebody wants to chime in, somebody wants to open up and say something. And so they unintentionally interrupt people. So if you do, just say, oh, I'm sorry for interrupting, you know, call yourself on it. Have a calm speed. It's hard when you're nervous, but the more you practice it, the easier it will come to you. Learn to think on your feet. Get your thoughts organized. There's a key here in 2 slides. Next, organize your thoughts. Work on your vocabulary, slang. People comment on slang in the Caspers, in the MMIs, in a traditional interview. People comment on that, and certainly no expletives. Now, why am I putting these silly things on here, right? You know this, but I'm telling you because I guess not everybody knows. And we actually have had some people who felt so comfortable with the interviewer. Maybe it was a student. Most often it's a student interviewer. And they don't mean to trick you into being so casual that you'll use expletives or slang. They don't mean to put you in that situation, but we all mean to put you at ease. Most of us mean to put you at ease in an interview setting. So you should not mistake that for, okay, I can kick my feet back and just talk like I'm, anyway, you know what I'm saying. So what else can you do? Okay, if I'm going to show you 5 minutes, nutshell, one thing, it is going to be to get your hands on any list of interview questions that you can. Do not simply read them, because here's what happens. Here's what happens. You have I have a couple of pages, front, back, single space of very common interview questions. I will find a way to get them to you. YouTube channel is up. Anyway, I'll find I think we can email you as a batch. Anyway, I'll get them to you, but they're out there. Get your hands on every single question you can, and then go to the mirror, go to the bathroom mirror, and say the answer out loud to yourself. Practice. Sometimes when I was interviewing for this job, I devised some questions. I thought of some questions that I thought people were going to ask me. And I would go to the bathroom and I would tell my husband, I'm practicing, go away. So I could feel comfortable. People weren't listening to me, that kind of thing. Put yourself in a comfortable place and say the words out loud. If I asked you right now, why do you want to be a doctor? You know the answer to that question. You know the answer. It's here in your heart. But to articulate that in a meaningful way needs some practice and organization. Okay? Practice, 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 practice out loud. Practice with each other. Get into groups. We could set up something if you wanted to do an actual workshop on this. We could set up something for you. So you all just let me know the interest there, and we can set up Zoom meetings and things. Find examples, know your answers, and make sure, again, you're answering the question. Be a good listener, which means if you're one of those people that talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, give other people a chance. That comes up periodically at interview committee, that people couldn't get a word in edgewise. So make sure you take a breath every now and then. An answer that's a phrase or one sentence might do it, but probably people are looking for you to go into a little bit of depth. I think a 2 or 3 minute answer for something is going to be maybe about perfect, depending on what the question is. You absolutely should prepare. I think I threw out a slide that says, if you're doing a traditional in-person interview, know where you're going, get there early, expect rain and parking problems, get there early, study the map, all that, and then find out about the school, find out about the place. I don't ding people too much if they're not coming with big knowledge about Long School of Medicine. That's okay for me, because I have a lot of things I want to tell them that I know they're not going to find on our website. Okay, but you should kind of know some basics and try to find out about their interviewing process. And I think most schools are open about that. We have ours on our website, but that's going to be revised soon, maybe, hope not. Take a breath and don't panic. You might have difficult questions, things that you've never expected, or difficult people, ethical situations. This was hard for people. A lot of people have given me feedback that that's a very hard question. What if you don't match? What are your plans if you don't make it in this round? You know the numbers, 50,000 applicants, 20,000 people get in. Lots and lots and lots and lots of people have to reapply. That's in the application workshop, which, by the way, the recent workshops are on the YouTube channel. It is public now, so you search Club PreMed, you get all kinds of things, but you'll see our blue logo and get to see those recordings if you want to remind yourself or review some things. They're all on the YouTube channel now. Sometimes it's hard to talk about our weaknesses. I like a person who says, but I'm working on it. I've told you this example before. I'm shy, but I'm working on it, or things like that. I tell people, I think I can mute everybody. I think I can do it. I'm muting everybody, but you are allowed to unmute yourself. Check that setting for me. I tell people on interview day, our questions are just formulated to get to know who you are and more about your story. If somebody is asking you to solve any kind of healthcare crisis or alleged healthcare issue here or there. We have experts all across the world who can't solve these problems. So why would we expect you to? So, you know, answer in the best way you can. And sometimes it's okay to say, oh, can you all hear me?
Until a moment ago, you said sometimes it's okay to admit you don't have the answer, I think,
Yes.
but your sound muted out for just a few seconds.
And now it's okay, right? I think I hovered over something. So yeah, that's what I was saying. Again, don't panic. I love this because we forget this part. You need to be ready for any kind of interviewer. If there is a potato person sitting there across from you, not giving you any facial expression, not giving you any smile, and not, we all like, when you all do this, even in this setting, I feel like I'm with you. You guys say, are you hearing me? And you all nod, and it helps me. And that's one of the reasons I like to do it this way instead of just a recording. But they could appear mean or unfriendly or friendly. You have to be ready. Do not let that bother you. You have to be ready to move on and be your bright, friendly, happy, positive self, and don't let these things throw you. We have had interviewers once a year somewhere across the country falls asleep. Once a year somewhere. I know, right? I see some facial expressions like, how could you do that? But it happens. So, and sometimes that comes up in this chat. And what could you do? I would laugh, I would cough loudly, or tap my pen or something to kind of, you know, they've been on call. Maybe they have a new baby and been on call. You know, there are all kinds of reasons. They might be looking at their notes the whole time. They might not be using very good interview skills. So just be prepared to do the best that you can, and do not, we react to people, you know? So do not react. Don't let that throw you off. Practice, practice, practice. This is always something that also comes up in a chat later. And you have to, when it comes up in our committee, somebody says they were practiced, and I tell committee, we tell them to practice. They should be practicing what they're going to tell you about. So if it means also to the interviewer that you didn't seem enthusiastic about your message, you didn't seem passionate about this wonderful commitment you've done, then that's something else. So you need to practice and practice those answers to those questions in the mirror. And then if you're on your 10th interview, God bless you, that's like fantastic. But when you're on your 10th interview, you have to stop a moment, get all that enthusiasm back, remember your passion, pump yourself up, cheerlead inside here, so that you're ready to convey that that enthusiasm and warmth and passion for what you're intending to do. All righty. Oh, okay. So this is a plug for my power lady. I have mentioned her before. If you have not listened to Amy Cuddy's power TED Talk about body language, then you need to, because it's amazing. In short, and I think next time we'll do, in a week or two, we're going to do superpowers. So this is absolutely a superpower. Anything that makes you nervous, if you spend 2 minutes, she has two big messages in that TED Talk. One is what we just talked about, but proof that an interviewer will assess somebody in a more positive way with a positive, confident demeanor. So when you, as an interviewee, as an applicant, sit up straight, hold your head up high, just not all of the nonverbals, just hone those nonverbals and look confident, then you are evaluated in a much higher way than people who come in her studies who were slumped and not using a very assured posture. So that was one lesson. The other lesson is just amazing, and I use it all the time. If you can, I have windows here and there and one in the door. If you looked at me before I do these for you, because I'm committed to doing a good job for you, it makes me a little nervous. So I stand in my power pose, like Amy Cuddy taught me to do. So I highly recommend it, and we'll say, let me tell you the physiology. Got to tell you the physiology. If you stand like that, like pick a power pose. You can have your arms crossed or do the Superman flight thing or stand like Wonder Woman. Yes, that's it. We should all do it for 2 seconds. 2 minutes. When you stand like that, when you just stand, forget what's in your brain, forget what's going on there. But when you stand that way for 2 minutes, do you know that your physiology changes? You become more confident. You become less anxious just by standing there, okay? When she measured cortisol, the stress hormone, it went down after 2 minutes. And when she measured the I am confident hormone, sorry, it's not very equal, it's testosterone, but that's okay. It's measured and it goes up. After 2 minutes, if you stand like that, your physiology changes. So her other message is, you can fake it and fake it and fake it until you make it, but you're really becoming it. You're becoming a more confident person. So I would recommend doing it like anytime, anytime you're in that kind of situation. Remember the other parts of a traditional interview day. Remember all that etiquette, all eyes are on you, some memorable people are people who come in and at a registration table in a big place like this, where we're interviewing a big group, and people say good morning, instead of just standing in the line, shuffling through the line, picking up their badge, picking up their bag of goodies and going to sit down. People who stop for a second and make eye contact. I don't know if it's me at the table or Belinda, our director, or any of the A team, when they stop and say, how are you this morning? Make contact. It impresses us, because the large group wants to just shuffle through and follow directions. We're telling them to pick up their badge and stuff. So that makes an impression on us. Other people who, I'm skipping to the bottom there, other people who make an impression are people who are helpful to others, who I ask you not to bust your table, but people who start to bust their table and pick up their neighbors' plates and things after the breakfast or the lunch. People who are hanging out together, and I say, oh, are y'all, do y'all go to the same school, or do you know each other? And they say, no, we just made new friends. That's impressive to me, to interact and try to engage. And I realize that there's some introverts maybe out there who can't do that. Table manners. Wow. I think your mom taught you table, or your dad, or your grown up caregiver said not to lick your fork. Not to lick your utensils, and to like all those other things. Not put elbows on the table don't even bother me that much. It's like how you eat. So you have to, I have a slide I threw away also that said, it's not, if you've got an interview luncheon that you're attending, it is not the time to pack it away for the winter. You don't like shovel it all in, please. Use nice manners. It's part of being a professional. We have a lady every summer in one of our programs, Diane Gottsman. You can follow her on Instagram. She trains big wigs, CEOs, and prominent leaders everywhere how to eat and other parts of etiquette. So it's important to people. Unless it's a mock interview setting where our goal is to, and we could set this up for y'all, we're doing, I'll tell you later, unless it's a practice setting, you don't sit in a real medical school interview and say, how did I do? You say thank you. You say, I really enjoyed speaking with you. Here's another question that comes up that I forgot to put in there is, I lost my thought, because that's what happens when I look at the chat. 1 second. Oh, when you are asked, do you have any questions? Most of us at our committee here we feed you so much information. If you don't have any questions right then, that's okay. And honestly, I really would rather have somebody say, no, thank you. I don't have anything right now, but I know how to contact you or students, could I contact you in the future, something like that. I would much rather have an applicant say that than what are some changes that are going to happen with your school? Because does that mean you weren't listening to me like when I gave you the introduction or, So I would rather, unless you have a legitimate, ask it. If it's a good, legitimate question, don't go without asking. Sometimes our school and other programs will ask you for evaluations of the day. It's a way to be another moment to be professional. And you should be professional in your comments. We want real feedback. If something wasn't great, I really want to know. But if you're telling me about a problem, often it doesn't come up too often. In fact, our interview days are like just fantastic. But I wonder what happened here. They're not giving me enough information. I can't fix it. So watch how you answer the evaluations of the day. And thank you notes we could talk about for like a long time. Does it matter? It probably doesn't have direct impact on your assessment, but it is a very nice etiquette thing to do, and it does make an impression on people for a moment. So I'm not telling you not to do it. Do it if that's preferred, and it should be part of your professional self to say thank you. So I think for that reason, it's a good thing. I'm going to check the chat for a second. Let's see. Okay, are y'all answering yourselves, I guess? So that's a good question. Do you bring those thank you notes with you or send afterwards? Either way works. Some people are prepared and have things, and I'm sometimes quite surprised they can be a pretty meaningful note during the day. So it might help you just remember what y'all talked about, or sometimes people put that in the thank you note too. Thank you, that was a nice thing, Sharon. Yeah, someone asks, what's the best way we can get to know a school if the interviews are going to be online? So we're getting into that. So can y'all save that and we'll go back to that? So what are my thoughts about taking notes or remarks during the interview? I think if you're taking notes during the information session, I love that. And it tells me that people are really paying attention. Had somebody last cycle who asked me like a week later or something, could he have his evaluation back because he had written all the notes on that blank piece of paper. And I thought, oh man, yeah, you took notes and now you really want to read your notes. So that's awesome. So I think that is great. If you're interviewing and taking notes about like informational kinds of things, then your interviewer's talking too much. I don't think you could, and especially if they said, especially if you said, I'm going to write that down. That's great information. That's very good to know. If you don't mind, I'm going to write some notes. So if you prefaced it that way, I think that's fine. Hopefully it doesn't mean that your interview is taking too long. So we're getting into some newer things. So everything we talked about so far can still be used in newer assessment methods, okay? The MMI, the multiple mini interview, in case you haven't heard, I'm sure all of you have heard of that. I'm sure all of you know the Casper. So and the Casper and MMIs are all under the umbrella of SJT, situational judgment tests, okay? So let's spend some time, because I think this takes some work. You can prepare, and you can prepare really well. So I'd like to tell you my thoughts on how you prepare. In general, there are 3 types of question: behavioral, situational, and then general sorts of things, like why are you interested in our school or something like that. In green there, it says, tell me about a time when you've had to collaborate with a peer who was difficult to work with. These are behavioral. How did you behave in the past? How have you behaved in the past? What would you do if you disagreed with your supervisor? How would you handle that situation? It is a situation, but they're asking you about your behavior, as opposed to putting you in a hypothetical but real situation that the MMI, Casper, and other SJTs do. You know, the AAMC is they're developing and beta testing this coming year their situational judgment test. So they're all over the place. You're not going to avoid it, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing. I'll get into some other things later. You're working on a project. They give you a hypothetical, and you are to say what you would do in that situation. I like this one, except that you don't have to worry. Most schools are not asking you medical things. This might have been for like a residency or something like that. You're on a night shift as an intern. Patient has some chest symptoms, and you're not sure. You get an abnormal. You know it's not normal, but you don't know quite what to do with it. Your resident is sort of out of pocket and says, just email me. Isn't that right? Just email me that. Just snap a picture and message me. Send me that EKG. And you've been trained that your institution is not secure to pass information that way. So what do? Patient has chest pain. Patient needs help. Resident's off somewhere. What can you do? So interesting. I'm not going to tell you the answer, okay? Because there are no right answers. There are many right answers. But when you think about what situational judgment tests are trying to do, they're trying to assess some important personal attributes. Some of the important personal attributes are listed here. These are the ones from, I'm talking to you because your faces are over here right now so I can see the screen. Some of the important things are listed here. These probably cover everything that certainly is in our list. Every school has a mission. Every school has criteria per LCME. We have discrete, specific criteria for acceptance. Ours are on our website. The AAMC has a list of competencies needed or looked for in medical students. And there's a lot of crossover, not total crossover with the AAMC, but there's a lot of crossover here with the Casper attributes. So these assessments are trying to get at, do you collaborate? Do you have empathy? Do you care about people? How's your communication? Are you a professional? So this covers a lot of ground. And one company, I love the Casper people, so I don't mean this to sound negative, because a while back, a couple of years ago, up until maybe about a year ago, they said you really can't prepare. And I disagreed then, but now they do give you much more advice about preparing. So that in the notes, that's going to be one place you're going to go to prepare for situational judgment tests in addition to the Casper. So let me see what's next. Yeah. So there are lots of things you can do to prepare. I've got like many slides for you here, many bullets, but you'll keep up or review it later. Casper website's a great source. Read about ethical issues, group dynamics. What kind of problems so part of professionalism, part of what we're looking for is people who are leaders. So what kind of problems did you encounter? What does the CEO of Walmart, how does he or she handle issues, right? So look up those kinds of things, professionalism, cultural awareness, cultural competency, develop an awareness of different perspectives. I would tell you in another setting, have told you when we talk about the diversity essay, when we talked about that last week, 2 weeks ago, whenever that was, that you're developing awareness. And then once we're aware and knowledgeable about different perspectives, what happens? We have respect for people. We grow our knowledge of who others are and can see something from another person's point of view, which sometimes you're going to have to do. So that's all good. Those are all good exercises for us. You absolutely, really, really should list and review your own experiences. So when they ask you, when you had trouble with a peer on a team project, what did you do? How did you fix that? With any of those behavioral type questions, you'll know an answer. I'm terrible at that. I am terrible at coming up with something right in my brain immediately when somebody answers my question in a more formal kind of setting. Terrible at that. So it's something that will help you a lot. Look for times, experiences in your past that have brought you conflict, controversy, challenges, you know, in groups or with individuals, and think about that, because somebody's going to ask you about examples. And the Casper actually has some of those behavioral tests on there. Do y'all need to know more about the Casper? I can tell, we can, when we get to the chat. Let me just get through that. Think about the personal attributes. Okay, up there in the corner, it says MEA. If you've listened to me before, you know what MEA is. The components of holistic review, which every school everywhere will tell you they do. The components are metrics, experiences, and attributes. You work on your grades, don't you? You work to make better and better and better GPA, right? You work, you practice and practice and practice all that MCAT stuff and take practice tests, and you work on your metrics. You work on having a better grade for the MCAT, right? You work on your experiences. You know you have to shadow, you know you got to get, and you're dying to, you're wanting to, right? Because this helps you know about what you're stepping into, and it helps you develop skills and knowledge about medicine in the field you're entering into. But do you work on your personal attributes? So I'm here, like I have before, probably in the workshop or other places when we talk about a personal growth plan. We'll talk about that next week with superpowers, okay? Work on your personal attributes. So when I'm telling you these ways to prepare for the test, it's not cheating the test. Is that the next slide? No, it's not. So it's not gaming the test. It's not cheating the test. It is developing yourself as a person who wants always to be the best person you can be, especially in terms of those attributes that make you a great doctor, right? So if you have trouble in a challenging situation, don't know the answer, don't know what you would do in a certain situation, maybe if you read about things and think about it and explore some areas, maybe you could behave at a higher level the next time. So if that's not gaming the test. You studying so hard for your MCAT is not to jump the MCAT hurdle. It is not to jump the MCAT hurdle. It is taking large amounts of the information, organizing it, excelling at it, practicing it. And you know what? When you step into medical school, first day, you know what you're going to be doing? Those same skills are going to have to be employed. So it's not an MCAT hurdle. It's you gathering skills that you need. Okay. So, and I think you probably already look at it that way. So other ways to practice for Casper in particular would be type. And I don't mean type randomly during the test. See, we're still prior to the test. Have facility on a keyboard. There's lots of advice out there. Go on YouTube and listen to everybody's. Some are better than others, but go listen to them. Somebody says you put Grammarly on there, that the Casper test accepts that add-on, that extension. So use Grammarly because they might help you with your grammar and being concise and direct and all that if you had time. And your words matter here too. Slang is not acceptable, and we get little flags when people are using slang. I don't even know what time it is. Okay, we're pretty good. During the test now, you need to like take a breath, okay? It is a timed test. Casper, which is, I'm sure all of the 50,000, I'm sure all but one or a huge majority of people are taking the Casper test. It's used in 139 countries, 100 different programs, hundreds of different programs here in terms of allopathic medicine, osteopathic medicine, nursing, health professions, etc. You pay $12, you pay to have it distributed. anyway, let me jump right back in here. Sorry. You'll have 12, here's what I was getting to. You'll have 12 tests. 8 are video scenarios. They'll show you some. Go look at the examples. They're the kinds of things I was talking about, decision making and challenging and putting you in the position to make a decision. What is your decision going to be? So go look at those samples. Casper gives you some, and then there's some others out there on the wide web. But you take a breath, you read the scenario or you listen to it. I'm sorry, 8 are videos, 4 are text-based. So you process the scene, take a minute to understand each scenario. Focus on, like, what is the most important thing here? Look at all your questions. You'll have 3 questions. You'll be prompted to answer 3 questions. Look at all of them before you answer any. Not that it's going to give you a clue to a decision tree or anything, but it just might help you open up some other pathways in your brain about other things you might want to be thinking about. Look at all the questions. So you want to demonstrate an understanding of the issue. You want to present both or all sides. Remember, because you're practicing being open-minded anyway. You want to show some originality, some people say, and remember there are no right or wrong answers. And these are not on the Casper, they're not medically based at all. They're situation, you know. There's a team and they can't get their project done because they've got sort of a delinquent member of their team who's off not turning in, you know, what they were counting on, and how to deal with that kind of a situation. Confidence, remember to do your Amy Cuddy pose before you take your Casper. Always. Understand the roles in the scene, and then focus when that camera, the Casper camera will turn to you and say, what would you do? So understand your role in the scene. Think about what would be the most effective outcome. Okay, think about your outcome there. I think this is a great tip. I found it somewhere. And think about the outcome with the least negative. You want the most positive outcome, and you want the least damage to people, okay? So they'll put you in a predicament where there's a balance there. So try, and with experience, I think you'll get better at this, striking that right balance. Think about how are you. Maybe you've got a scene, you've heard this one before, the person is bringing in the toy to exchange. This is a famous Casper scenario scene. The person is bringing something in for an exchange. This lady at the store, at the counter says, I can't do that, you don't have a receipt. The person says, but I need the cash because my kid is sick and I need to buy the medicine, and this is how I'm gonna do it. The camera turns to you and says, okay, what are you gonna do now? I think, you're caring and compassionate and concerned about the person in this dilemma. How do you portray that? So you might feel it. You might feel empathy with this person, but if you're not typing it in the answer, people are not, your raters are not going to see the empathy. So think about conveying those personal attributes. Do you need to convey collaboration? Do you need to convey good communication? Or any of those other 10 things. Think about how you are conveying the personal attributes there. I told you all about this. It's a teachability thing. You're not, by practicing and looking up scenarios and way to handle these scenes, you're teaching yourself, okay? So it's not just these MMIs and situational judgment tests. It's not like this test, like a lab test, like I'm going to check your sugar right now and see what your sugar is right now. And gosh, you're low on empathy, but you're high on collaboration. It's also a teachability thing. This is why there aren't any wrong answers. Anyway, I think it's a teachability thing. If we thought that somebody wasn't quite the best professional, but had all these other things, so all these other things to bring, we're going to help you with that professional identity formation. We're going to teach you lots of this in medical school. Do you have to have it right now? Well, we'd love to see what you've got, but actually we're going to teach you, and it's going to grow in medical school. So just my take on that. We'll talk actually about the personal growth plan next time. Lots of help on YouTube, I already told you that. And the Texas, TMDSAS has the education service, and I did a recent podcast on there with Mr. Hasso about the Casper if you wanted to look at some more stuff there. Go into some more details. I promise I'm going to get to your questions. Let's see. Okay, now we need to get into, we have to get real here. All of the Texas schools have said they are preparing for virtual interviews, okay? Everything we've said up until now still applies, okay? With some extra tips. I am hoping that we can postpone, the timeline's been postponed, so I'm hoping that we can postpone the interviews, so maybe we can have some sort of a hybrid model. We love interview day here. It makes us tired. It's like a wedding every week, but we love seeing you. We love seeing your face and interacting with you, and the students love it. And it's just like high energy, good energy all day long, every week for 25 weeks, so to convey on our side, to convey that to you in a virtual way is going to be challenging, but we're going to do it. At any rate, on your end, you have some things to be ready for. You all are experts, but you might pass along to your friends. So we've become friends, Zoom friends, and you're Zoom experts. I am certainly becoming a Zoom expert, but they might use another platform. So find out what that platform is and practice it. If there's a free version, do it for a while. Record yourself. Look at what you look like. You're gonna, of course, be testing mics and cameras prior. I wish I could turn this thing around. I love this. It's like $60. So I know you're pre-meds, and that's a big hunk of money, but in the scheme of things, it's a nice camera, right? It's a Logitech. I'll just put a plug. Maybe they'll give me a free one. HD 1080p. It's got a good mic. It's recognized by any platform that just pops up, so it's very handy. Full charge and if you don't have a dependable device, you're gonna have to borrow one. Full charge, plugged in. Put yourself where there's dependable Wi-Fi. And that might be, skip down there to find a suitable environment. That might be back on a campus or in a library or some public place. Well, not too public because it's an interview. So you'll want to see what's available there for people. Gosh, I wonder if that's something we could do. I'm writing that idea down. Provide like a space for somebody. Anyway, apparently speedtest.net is a place where you can check your internet speed. There's a brand new document called Virtual Interviews for Everybody. It gives it to admissions, it gives it to interviewers, and it gives it to the students on the AAMC. So if you pull up the AAMC website, they'll have some of this stuff here for you. Okay, make your bed. Watch your background, a virtual, a neutral background that you select is going to be best, I would say. You don't want to be distracting. The whole backlight thing, you'll have to, in an interview setting, you want to make sure there's good light this way. If I open up those screens, I go in the dark. So watch how you look. So record yourself. Oh, this is great. You could record yourself answering some of those questions while you're practicing. That's perfect. You're going to have situations that are live, virtual live, but then you're also going to have some asynchronous. That's the SOVI. I've told you before about the SOVI, right? Standardized one-way video interview. There are a few schools who use it across the country. Dell has used it for screening interviews. This year, we are going to recommend it. We're not going to require it. We're going to give people a year. We're not going to require it. We piloted, I told you this before, we piloted in the fall, and the committee reviewers who looked at these practice sessions where pre-meds were answering these questions, the committee loved it, and the students had a great time. I better say now before I forget, that is a LMSA project. We help them with it every year. We're changing to a spring venue. It's a mock and talk. So it will be a mock interview. We'll go through some of this thing again, but you'll also get an in-person or synchronous interview, and then you'll have an asynchronous one that you'll put up that we can look at later. Let me know if you have questions about that. Make sure your video is on. So this doesn't count right here for your tile that has a name on there. Thank you so much. It doesn't, I understand, you know, that maybe you didn't make your bed, or, you know, you just don't want to be on screen there, but make sure everything is okay for your video to be on in a virtual setting. Get your whole face on the screen. Funny angles happen with tablets. When we do our family Zoom every week and talk to people, my husband has a tendency to let his laptop slide. I'm like, we can't see you, come on. So make sure your whole face is on the screen. And I really try to do this all the time. Try to make your eye contact, put whatever you're looking at. I look at you all. So you're all here near my camera, so that eye contact is a little better. If you really have to position yourself like this, you should explain to your interviewer or look at the camera, you know, look the right way every now and then. And I think that on our end, we're going to have to forgive some of these things that are device driven. Mute yourself, of course, real name on the screen, eliminate, this is your interview setting, right? Eliminate distractions, the dog, you know, the dog and the kids and things like that. Emphasize your attentiveness. This is why I love to not just record it, but talk to you all, because you're like there, you're with me, you're nodding. That really helps, right? For both of us, you know, in an interview setting, it's going to work both ways. So emphasize your attentiveness. If people are doing raising hands, or they're telling you about emojis and chats that you can use, do that, engage in that. We know then you're engaged. And I'm sorry I've ignored the chat. I wanted to get through all these slides. I think there's just one more. And dress for the occasion, you know, like the whole thing.